What's going on, everyone? Crush back here with another video. Hopefully everyone's having a great day today. I know I am, and today I have another Last of Us show review, episode 7 to be specific. And yeah, y'all know the vibes. I'm gonna be doing the summary first, and I'll be giving my own thoughts at the very end on how I thought the episode went. Did I think it was good? Did I think it was shit? And pretty much after the summary, I'll give my whole honest opinion on what I thought of the episode. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get right on into it. And real quick, before we actually get into it, just another reminder, there are spoilers in this video. So, if you haven't seen the show yet, if you're planning on seeing it, then don't watch this video. You should still watch it, just don't watch it yet, because I don't want anyone getting spoiled, because trust me, Last of Us, great game, great show, alright? Anyway, let's get right on into it. So the episode starts out with a yard shot of a snowy terrain. It looks like an abandoned neighborhood that Ellie and Joel made their way through. You can see a blood trail, which is most likely from Joel from being stabbed in the last episode, leading up to a house where Joel's laying on a mattress and Ellie's trying to figure out what to do and how to help him. Joel is telling Ellie to go back to Tommy because he doesn't want her being in danger. And I'm not sure if he wants Ellie to go get help from Tommy, which he possibly might, or if he just wants Ellie to be safe, or it's probably a combination of both of them. But Ellie doesn't leave. Ellie is determined to stick by his side and help him through his injury and help get him back on his feet and to make sure that he can still get her to Salt Lake City where the Fireflies are. After that little introduction, that's the last we see of Joel until the very end of this episode. And after we saw him in this first scene with Ellie trying to figure out how to help him, Ellie has a flashback. Ellie goes all the way back before she met Joel when she was still with, I think, the military. Yeah, we see Ellie doing laps in a gym, and it honestly gives me back old gym class vibes whenever I was in my gym class. We would sometimes warm up by doing a lap or just doing something just to warm us up, which I'm sure everyone at some point has done that, especially if you've done gym, which I hope everyone has. Ellie's running with her headphones in with her, I don't know, her cassette player playing music, and there's a whole bunch of girls that are running past her. And when I first saw this, I thought Ellie was purposely just being slow and just using music to motivate her. But looking back on it, I think Ellie just didn't care, and she just wanted to jog, and she just wanted to vibe and not really try her hardest. And there was a girl named Bethany who rips out Ellie's headphones, and I think she takes her cassette player. It was a cassette player. She's basically bitching at Ellie, telling Ellie that if she doesn't try her hardest, then everyone's going to suffer and that they're all going to have to do extra work. And Ellie doesn't really care. Ellie just give it back, give the cassette player back, not giving a shit about what the other girl says. Rightfully so, because if someone took my shit, then why the hell would I want to help you, you know? It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to be logical, maybe, but this bitch was not being logical. So Bethany, the girl that ripped out Ellie's headphones, basically tells Ellie that she won't do nothing and that now that Riley is no longer at that school, that nothing's going to happen. Which was a pretty big mistake on her part, because after it's pretty obvious that the girl's still not going to give Ellie her cassette player back, Ellie, I guess she was not in the best mood, and after that Riley remark, she definitely got pissed off. And Bethany, I don't know if Ellie is normally like this, which knowing her and the savage that she is, she normally is just a I don't give a fuck type of person. She punches Bethany right in the face. Ellie woke up and chose violence, okay? Rightfully so, I would have done the same thing. And then after she punched her in the face, we flash forward a little bit to see Ellie, and I don't know what the guy's name, but she's basically in the principal's office for military. I guess she's talking with a captain or an officer about what happened. And what ended up happening was that Ellie put this girl in the infirmary and she had to get stitches. And Ellie herself has a black eye as well. So I guess the girl had some fight in her, but Ellie clearly fucked her up. And she clearly doesn't need Riley for everything. Just to cut what the captain said short, the captain basically told Ellie that she has a chance to change her life up instead of, just doing community service and doing bullshit jobs for the military her whole life. She could become an officer and lead and have a good promising future. Ellie, though, being the savage as she is, she probably, I can't speak for her 100%, but I'm pretty sure she didn't care that much. She obviously doesn't want to get in trouble anymore, because if she gets in trouble again, then shit's going to go down, and whatever they're planning on doing, she won't like what they're going to do. And she just asked for her cassette player back, and even before asking for her cassette player back, Ellie was about to accept a random punishment that she was given before, which was just to go sit in the hole, which I guess is like the corner for the military and prison, because I've heard the hole before, or maybe it's solitary confinement. I'm not exactly sure, but it's something like that, I'm sure. We'll come forward a little bit more later. Ellie's reading in her room, and she gets told to turn her light off. She goes to bed, and then out of nowhere, at least what she thought was an attacker, starts attacking her, but it turns out it was Riley, who was just trying to play a prank on her. Ellie was pissed off, and she and Riley kind of got in a little bit of an argument. It was more like Ellie yelling at Riley. And Riley reveals that the reason she came there today was because she just wanted to have fun with Ellie, take her out somewhere and have a good time. And Ellie at first says no, but eventually agrees to go with Riley, and then the two of them escape the room and head out. While leaving, they almost immediately got caught, and which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how they didn't get caught, because it was pretty clear that there were two people in the alleyway that the military shined a massive spotlight over, and I think Riley said it best, the military is just stupid. But regardless, they didn't get caught, and those two were a little bit more careful. They snuck into a building, were just talking a little bit more about like Riley and what's been going on. Then they find a dead body, which I assume was Wilson from the video game, because if y'all played the video game, you know that once they enter the mall, that there's like a little, I want to say tent. It's kind of like a big tent, I want to say, that was in the mall. And it had a whole bunch of Wilson shit in it, and it had some liquor in it. And while we don't have Wilson officially in this episode, I'm assuming that dead body is supposed to be him, because with this dead body, there's a bunch of prescription pills, and there's some, what I want to say, scotch. I don't know what kind of liquor that is exactly, but I'm just going to say it's scotch. About a minute after they took the scotch off the dead body, the floor underneath the dead body collapses, and they just barely missed out, falling with the dead body to the ground level. And after they saw the dead body, along with the half of the floor fell, they decide to start taking shots of the whiskey. It's kind of funny because you can tell Ellie clearly did not like the scotch, but she was drinking it anyway just to impress Riley. And Riley's more of a champ and is a little bit harder to, I guess, drinking liquor in general, because she drank it and she didn't look like she was having too much trouble drinking it. And as a fellow whiskey drinker, along with pretty much any kind of hard liquor, let me just tell you, at least for me, that shit is sour. Like, it's hard to drink raw. I can do it. I can do little bits. I can do shots. But I can't just gulp it all down like that. I'm not built that way, okay? I'm a pussy. I need some Coke. When I was younger, when I was 18, I was able to kind of do that, but hell nah, not nearly anymore. After they're done doing a little bit more talking and drinking the scotch, they make their way to another part of town that has a mall in it. And Ellie warns that there's infected in it, but Riley makes a point saying that if they're infected in it, it would have been boarded up, and they end up assuming that there's no infected in it and that the military just says it to scare people, which I assume that was their logical thinking behind entering the mall. Riley tells Ellie to go forward, assuming that she doesn't know what's inside the mall, and then after Ellie goes forward, enters the mall, doesn't really see much and is having flashlight problems, Riley flicks the breaker and all the lights and devices and electronics and shit in the mall turn on. And for most of the episode, Riley and Ellie are just having a good time. They're riding the Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel. I'm such a dumbass. They're riding the merry-go-round, they're going in a photo booth, they're playing arcade games, and they're just exploring the mall, and it looks like they're having such a good time. While they're doing all this, Riley's giving Ellie more information on why she decided to join the Fireflies, and then eventually reveals that she's going to be leaving Boston and is going down to Atlanta, I guess for some Firefly shit. I never quite understood why. I guess that it's kind of like the military, and when you get drafted, she's being drafted down to Atlanta for the Fireflies. Ellie's clearly really pissed off at first and storms away in tears, and Riley, you can tell she's upset too, and she did not want to tell Ellie this and did not want to go, but it is what it is. Ellie eventually has second thoughts though and comes back, and when she's walking back, she gets a little bit spooked because Riley was inside a Halloween store and there was a device that was going off that sounded like screaming, and Ellie, assuming that was Riley, ran right to the noise to see what was going on. But luckily for Ellie, it was just the machine, and then she saw Riley just sitting down right near it. After that little scare that Ellie had, they end up talking again, she and Riley. Riley basically told her that the reason she even joined was because she felt, I guess, a family type of bond with the Fireflies. It's kind of how, I guess the best way to describe this, at least in my head, is if you grow up in a rough environment, so like the Hood, for example, which The Last of Us, pretty rough environment, I would say, for the most part. And if you're in like the Hood, for example, and it's ruled by a gang, and then you join a gang, you usually go there because you have a sense of brotherhood and family with the other members. So I think it's somewhat like that, except more of a militia type format with Riley and the Fireflies, since Riley does not have her parents anymore since they died. But Ellie's listening. She's being reasonable after hearing that, and after they're done their little conversation, Riley turns on some music. They both put the Halloween mask that they found in that store on and start dancing on top of the display cabinet. I don't know, I'll just call it a display table, just because nobody gives a shit. And then after they're having a good time dancing, Ellie asks one more time for Riley to not leave, and Riley agrees. She agrees to not leave. And after that, they give each other a kiss. And unfortunately, shortly after, it wasn't peaches and rainbows. Anyone that's seen or played the Last of Us Left Behind DLC will understand what happens next. So what ends up happening next is an infected which heard them in the mall earlier, which when they were in the arcade, the infected started to wake up, and I guess they were starting to track down where Ellie and Riley were. This infected finally found them and engaged in combat and started running after them. Riley pulls out her gun a couple seconds before the infected starts running towards them, gets some nice shots in, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. While she got the legs and I think part of the torso and arm of the infected, it just wasn't enough. The infected started fighting Ellie and Riley, knocked Riley down on the ground, and it looked like she was unconscious for a minute. And then Ellie started to 1v1 the infected, and the infected was pushing her against a wall. Ellie started stabbing the shit out of it, but after a big long fight and Ellie it almost looked like the infected was gonna eat her face out or something, Riley woke up and beat the infected with a baseball bat. And when the infected started getting the upper hand on Riley, Ellie was able to finish off the infected by stabbing it in the head and killing it. And at first Ellie was super hyped. She was probably filled with adrenaline. She's like, fuck yeah, I just killed an infected, woo, something like that, you know. But that was short-lived after Riley was looking at Ellie, and then Ellie looked down at her arm and realized she got bitten, and then she looked at Riley and realized that Riley got bitten as well, which again, if you saw the DLC in the Last of Us video game, no surprise. After they realized what happened, Ellie starts smashing the shit out of the display cabinet in anger, and Riley's just sitting there sad, knowing what's going to happen next. And they're reviewing their options. Either option 1, they kill themselves, or option 2, they just wait it out pretty much. And there's a little more dialogue, and then they choose option 2 and are just chilling there, and that's when the flashback ends. After the flashback ends, we cut back to present day where Ellie's searching the house that Joel and her are in, and she's looking for any kind of medical equipment, I'm assuming. Any kind of medicine, stitches, band-aids, stuff like that, just to help Joel out. And she ends up finding a needle, and I'm assuming that she ended up sewing Joel's wound, kind of like in the video game after he, got stabbed in the last episode. And there wasn't really much more after that. You could tell that Joel and Ellie were both happy that Ellie didn't leave him behind and that they were together, and it looked promising for the next episode. It looks like Joel's going to be fine. And that was pretty much the end of this episode. Alright, so now let's get into my review of this episode. So, I would say that the first half of the episode was pretty good. I thought everything was pretty accurate, how Joel was in the house, how Ellie was trying to take care of him, stuff like that. And then I thought the first half of the flashback, or probably more like the first 2/3 of the flashback, were pretty good. I like how we got to see Ellie punch that one girl in the face and just interact with more people than just Riley in the flashback. And after that scene, I think everything, like I said before, was pretty spot on, how they snuck out and got to the mall. The only thing that wasn't super accurate was the Wilson part. They didn't even mention that the dead guy's name was Wilson, if it even was Wilson. And there was no Wilson in the mall like in the video game, but that's not really that big of a deal. It doesn't really matter that much. They got the liquor a different way, but it don't matter. It's not that big of a deal. And then after they got in the mall, I thought it was pretty accurate. The merry-go-round was cool. The escalator was cool. They didn't throw bricks at the cars, sadly, but it's whatever. That's not a big deal, you know. When they got to the arcade scene, I thought that was also pretty accurate, besides the arcade machines actually working this time. But again, not a big deal. Not a game changer. That's fine. Nobody's gonna complain. But yeah, I thought that everything was pretty good until we got to when they saw the infected scene. I thought that was lame. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was kind of stupid because in the video game, Ellie and Riley deal with a lot more infected. So many more infected than just one guy. Like, they got pushed around by one dude. And I get they're little girls, but Riley has a gun and Ellie has a knife. And there's two of them against one. One very slow infected as well. It's not like the infected in the video game where they're running like linebackers in football or whatever. This guy was slow. He looked like he had a limp. Clearly wasn't in the best shape. They basically got killed by the sped infected. Riley basically got caught lacking by a sped infected, not even a normal one that can't even walk right. In terms of 1v1ing the infected, I did like that. I thought the fight was good, but I think they should have added more of a chase and where they almost got away but unfortunately didn't. That very bitter feeling in the DLC when they almost got away but they just didn't. They were barely not able to get away. I think it could have been a lot better. And I think they should have definitely had more infected than just one. Especially with Riley having a gun. I thought it was just stupid that you even have the gun if you can't take down one infected with 4 bullets. Just kind of goofy in my opinion. But yeah, I'd say that after the infected scene, I think their final moments together were super on point. That was really good. No complaints there. And then my second big complaint about this episode was how easily Ellie got the medical equipment. In the DLC, Ellie has to go through a mall, which I think were David's boys. Because if y'all remember in the video game, David talks about how a lot of his men didn't come back from searching a town and that they got killed by a quote-unquote crazy man and a little girl. Pretty sure those were his boys in the DLC. Either that or in the university, but for shits and giggles, let's just say that his boys were in the mall. Ellie has to fight tooth and nail for that med kit that was in the military helicopter in the DLC, then fights David's boys, and fights infected. Like, she worked hard to get that stuff, and then just conveniently found it in the house. I thought that was boring. Like, I did not like that. That shit was way too easy. It was just kind of stupid in my opinion. What's going to be even more bullshit is if she actually found medicine for Joel as well in that house. If they found medicine and completely skip past the David part, even though David is a fucked up motherfucker, if they completely skip over that in the next episode, that's bullshit, dude. It's so stupid if they do that. Now, again, I don't know what next week has for us, but I don't know. I just felt that it was just way too easy for Ellie to find the stitches and the med kit. But I would say besides that, along with the infected fight scene in the flashback, I think everything else was pretty good, mostly spot on. Obviously a few tweaks and edits and differences from the TV show versus the video game, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It just could be better. So what would I rate this? I would give this a 7. It wasn't bad, like I keep saying, but it could have been better. I think we can all agree on that, okay? And to make it even more intense, just adding one more thing that I just remembered real quick. At the very end of the DLC, the bandits, David's people, were trying to get into the little, I don't know what it's called, like the little store that Joel was cooped up in the mall. They were trying to break in and kill him, and Ellie had to kill them off. And it could have been super crazy and intense, just showing how badass Ellie is with a gun. Basically going from how Ellie fucked up one girl in her school to how she fucked up a whole bunch of men in the mall, along with infected. So, yeah, it could have been better in my opinion, but let me know what you guys think. That's just my personal opinion and take on this episode. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was almost perfect, and maybe I'm just being too much of a hard ass, or maybe I'm not being harsh enough. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And as always, make sure y'all either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.